Hey there, everyone. This is Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy with the NautilusDryDocks.com. It is September 28th, 2019 at about 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully everybody will be joining us over the course of the next few minutes because I have got a ton of things that I want to share with you, some updates from the shop. And as a special topic, we're going to be talking over pumps. All the four different main kinds of pumps that you'll typically see utilized in an RC submarine, the different quirks and features of each style. I'm getting my cheat sheet here for talking topics. So, we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to get signed in. I apologize in advance. I'm going old school here. I'm holding my cell phone. Typically, I have my little selfie stick deal, but I got a new phone and it's too big to fit in it. So that sucks. But regardless, we've got some cool things to talk about today. Let's start with some updates, some projects and things that we've got going on. I've uploaded a bunch of videos over the course of the last few weeks, and if you haven't had a chance to catch them, there's some cool ones in there. Talked about waterproofing servos. Let's talk about that for a few minutes. Servos and waterproof servos. I go into all of this in detail, so go to my channel, which you're already on. It's one of the newest ones that are up there right now. There's really not anything that is actually a waterproof servo. You buy them all the time. You can see them on like Amazon and eBay. Waterproof servos. Baloney. They're not waterproof. They're designed for utilization inside like boats, RC boats, and RC cars, and that kind of thing, where they'll be, driving through puddles and they might get splashed. So with that being the case, they're not designed to withstand pressure from the outside trying to work their way in. They're more designed to resist ambient pressure and water being splashed on them. So go into the process there to waterproof a servo. Ideally, I think it's still the best case scenario to put those servos inside your waterproof container, your watertight cylinder. But in a situation where it just makes more sense to mount it closely or remotely to what you're trying to move, this might be a good way of going about it. So the Bob's Notes versions of that, put an O-ring underneath the horn, seal up the seams of the servo, and then fill the whole thing with olive oil. It's pretty cool. Take a look at the video. If you haven't seen it already, check it out. It's pretty cool. In the background here, I don't know if you can see that. That is a 1/9 scale OTW Seahund submarine. I got this as a started project and sold it to a customer, traded me an unfinished kit for it. So this just got finished up a couple of days ago, and I just finished putting the video together. I have not uploaded it yet, but this is going to be kind of a cool video. If you guys haven't seen it, the Seahund, I just love the looks of it. It's such a unique boat, and they were actually a very successful submarine platform during World War II. So if you're interested in a little bit of trivia, look up the German Seahund midget submarines and see how they were utilized in World War II. But this is an OTW kit. It's like 53 inches in length, I think, overall. It's pretty sizable. And I'll have that video posted up here, hopefully by the end of the day. So check that one out as well. Oh my gosh, we're having a hard time today. Hey, before we go further, as most of you know, 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and it was a rare form of cancer. It was cancer of the appendix. It's kind of a weird one, super rare, lucky me. Fortunately, it was able to have been addressed completely with surgery. So I did not have to go through chemotherapy or anything like that. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I just, a few days ago, went to Houston to the MD Anderson Clinic to get my 6-month follow-up from that procedure. And I'm happy to say I have a clean bill of health. There's been absolutely no indication that the cancer spread or made it anywhere that didn't get extracted. So for those of you who are interested, and obviously for those of you who keep inquiring as to the status of my health, thank you very much. Everything is looking awesome. We're back to usual, getting in the shop and making things happen. So again, thanks for asking about me. What else do we got going on here? Also uploaded a video about the Engel of Germany 212A submarine kit. Take a look at that video. I love that boat. It was my first opportunity to lay hands on it. It's a great size, and the engineering that goes into it is really quite astounding. I am quite taken with it. If I would have known it was going to be that much fun before I advertised it for sale, I might have actually just hung on to it for a personal boat for myself. But it got sold to a very fine gentleman out of Thailand. It's on its way there right now. Hopefully it makes it over there without any damage. But check out that Engel 212. Goes into great detail about the internal workings of the boat and how it actually performs on and under the water. Very cool. Also uploaded a video on 3D printing, and specifically on a big hull that I printed, a 1/48 scale British Astute class submarine. And I've got those pieces sitting right here. So that's 48 scale. The whole thing is like over 6 feet in length when it's all put together, and it's got a beam of like 9 inches, like 9 or 10 inches. I don't recall, but a beautiful boat. And this is based off of the 3D files that I have available on my website. I created those files. It was I'm not going to call it amateurish, but it was a great first attempt to create some 3D files that people can purchase, download, and then print their very own RC submarine. And the cool thing about it, as you've noticed, is that you can basically build that boat to any scale that you want, provided you got a printer that will take it. So as provided, it's in 1/96th scale, and it will accommodate a 3-inch diameter watertight cylinder. I think if you scale it down to like 84% or something like that, it will happily accept a 2.5 inch diameter watertight cylinder. And if you scale it up by 200%, you end up with a 48 scale boat, as you see over there. So you can have lots of fun with that. It's all basically set up with RC in mind. So all of the saddles are in place to accept your watertight cylinder. Shafts are kind of pre-bored so that you can install all of your appendages and that kind of thing. So if you're interested in it, by all means, check it out. I've got a specific section set aside right now for CAD files for submarines. The Astute's the first one in there. And this brings me to the second one. I'm going to have a new one coming out here in the coming weeks. And this was I guess you could call it a commission. A gentleman reached out to me because he absolutely loves the Hydra sub from Captain America, the First Avenger. So I don't know if any of you guys remember that. It was a one-man sub, and it kind of looked like a cross between a submarine and a fighter jet. But I have all of the pieces in here. This is going to be the watertight cylinder right here. It's going to be a dynamic diver. But these are all of the raw printed pieces for it, and it turned out really cool. I am really excited to take a crack at this. You can see this is like an outrigger that goes on the outside of the boat there, and some of the control surfaces and the snorkel. That was the stern section that I had there, and here's the intake that I created for the front of it that goes on the front of these little nacelles, you know, like that. Very cool looking boat, and I think based on the setup of this stern section, it's going to be a really great performer. I modified things slightly because obviously these were supposed to have been the drive engines for the boat, but I didn't want to make remote motors and have to waterproof them. So I set this up to accept an internal propeller that'll blow water out that back section right past all of your control surfaces, which means you're going to have super stupendous response from rudders and dive planes. So I think that boat is going to be a great performer. Those files will be available in that section, as I mentioned, on my website. And you can take a crack at building your own Hydra sub from Captain America, the First Avenger. So check that out if that's something that you are interested in. What else we got going on here? There was a lot. Nautilus. Everybody wants to know about the 48-inch Nautilus. Well, I'm very happy to report that the molds for the hull made it back to me from Virginia Beach, where they were undergoing some preliminary assessment by David Merriman III. Got here yesterday. They're big molds. Now, I am excited to get into the production of that. So I've got the technique, I think, pretty well nailed down. Just got to get to prototype casting. So realistically, we are going to be looking at probably late 2019 before I'm going to have that kit available for purchase. Reason being, I could get parts, immediately, but I can't just give them to people because the first question is, well, how does it go together? Where does this part go, etc. So I've got to build full, complete, detailed assembly instructions and probably an assembly video as well. And that'll be later this year, or at the very least, probably first part of next year. Probably, if I'm lucky, I'll open up pre-orders before Christmas. And we'll have a pre-launch probably for like the first 5 kits. We'll have a special price, maybe some extra bonus stuff that'll go with those first kits. So stay in touch. I am not making a list of people. When it opens, it'll open. It's your responsibility to keep up to speed on my website. You can do it. I know you can. All right? So if you're interested in the Disney Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the 1954 Disney version, 48-inch long Nautilus kit, gonna be coming out later this year. Okay. New kit just got launched, and we're going to have another one following right on its heels. 1/100th scale Los Angeles class kit. That is on my website right now. It is gorgeous. It is a ton of work to produce just because of the way that the gentleman that set up the master patterns and the molds did it. It's a little unorthodox, but it makes for a really cool kit. Check it out on my website, nautilusdrydocs.com. 1/100th scale Los Angeles kit. I've actually created a bunch of different ways for you to order it, kind of customize the layout for you if you're so inclined. I'm going to do that with all of the kits that I produce in-house. So it'll be available as a one-piece, like static display, or you can simply have that so you can create your own cuts of the hull, or the standard top-bottom hull configuration. And you can also specify if you want a super light layup, say for example like 2 6-ounce layers of cloth, or if you want a real heavy layup, which would get yourself closer to like 24 ounces of cloth altogether. All of those are options that you can choose when you buy the kit. So I really like it. It's really cool. Not ultra super accurate, but man oh man does it ever build into a beautiful little model. So check that one out. That brings me to the other, I'm going to flip my screen here, the other model kit that's going to be coming out here right away. In the background, you can see this ever-present Type 21 that is going to get finished here by the end of October, one way or the other. But sitting in front of it, you can see the unmistakable profile of a Russian submarine. And this is going to be the new kit, the newest kit that we're going to release here. I'm just doing molds for the appendages. This is a Soviet Victor III submarine. in 70-second scale. It's a sizable boat, and you can't really see it, I'm sure, on the video, but it's got some really great scribing in the details right there. Nice light layup of the sail, so it should reduce the size of the ballast tank needed. The Victors had two different props at the end. The first variants had this setup, and this is just a proof of concept that I created. This is actually a single prop, all right? And you can see it's got 8 blades and 2 different planes. And David Merriman was generous enough to send me some information that helped me create this mock-up. That's why it looks so rough. I just printed this on my FFM printer. I'm going to play around with it a little bit, but I'm going to have these printed in high-strength nylon, and those will be available to go with these kits. So I'm going to say probably by the end of next month, these will be available for purchase as well. Again, that's a Soviet Victor 3 RC submarine kit, or static display if you're so inclined. Okay. Nope. Hello again. Before we start getting into pumps and then into the questions, I've seen them lining up there. I'll get to you guys in a second, but before we get to that, if you've noticed on the homepage of my website, I got like a big banner, Dive Tribe. This is something that I've got because I honestly feel that our hobby, and you've heard me say this before, is a hobby for the elite. And as such, I think it is only fitting that we celebrate that fact for anybody that is building or has built an RC submarine. And if you have, I would love to call us members of what I call the Dive Tribe. So if you take a look here, I've actually got official Dive Tribe t-shirts available now on the website and available for purchase if you want them. I've also got something called the Dive Tribe Elite, and these are people who have paid to become members of the Nautilus Dry Docks Dive Tribe Elite Club. They're going to be getting some free swag, and it's going to more than make up for the small amount that it costs to buy in, and that is going to include t-shirts. So for those of you who are already elite members who've paid for t-shirts, I'll send you either extra stuff or I'll even refund what you've already paid. So these are super comfortable. They're nice and soft. I've got them in sizes from large through extra large right now. Got the initial order of 50 out there, so when they're gone, I'll be ordering some more. I love these shirts. Hopefully you guys will love them as well. The other thing that I've got, and I debuted these in Groton, Connecticut, for anybody that's built an RC submarine before, I think it's important to celebrate that. And I've got these little lapel pins. And if you take a look at these, hopefully that'll focus. There we go. Kind of, maybe. Just thinking about it. At any rate, this really celebrates the fact that you've successfully completed the build of an RC submarine. And the idea behind it, every lapel pin comes with 6 silver and 6 gold inserts. Every time you complete an RC submarine, you can put a silver insert into it until you fill up the entire pin with 6. And then once you get past 6, you start replacing the silver with gold until, like mine, you've got the full gamut of gold pins. And this basically shows everybody that you are a master submariner for the RC submarine world. It's a great way to start conversations with people. I've had people, when I wear this, just ask what it is, and it's a great way just to breach that subject and let people know about this crazy hobby that nobody really knows about. That's on the website, and again, Dive Tribe Elite members are gonna get one for free, so there you go. All right, let's take a look at some of these chats that I've missed here, okay? I'm gonna scroll back here and see what we missed. Speaking of the 212A, how does the linkage for the X-form rudder look like? So, there are 2 ways of creating the X-tail configuration for those RC submarines. or full-size submarines for that matter, mechanically or electronically. If you do it mechanically, you basically need to mount one of the two servos on a sliding tray, all right? It gets complicated, and you need to look up diagrams for how that's actually done. I don't know why anybody would ever do that now, because you got V-tail and X-tail mixers. They're like $20, and basically you've got an X. Let me see here. Let's do some doodling. All right. Look at this, educational. So you've got an X set up for your rear control surfaces. This is the stern of the boat looking forward, okay? You've got rudders on that axis and rudders on this axis, and they are connected together. These two are connected, and these two are connected. One shaft, two shafts. All right? So you have one servo connected to that one and one servo connected to that one. And basically the electronic mixers will combine the inputs from rudder and pitch control and allow all four of those control surfaces to be moved whenever an input is created. So for example, with a full right rudder, the one side would move in this direction, the other side would move in the same direction, and you got four control surfaces versus just two control surfaces moving the boat. So circling back to the initial question, all you need to do is buy the X-tail mixer or the V-tail mixer. It's on my website under a V-tail mixer. You connect the two servos to the mixer and you're done. It automatically mixes all of your inputs, and that's all you needed to do. Can a brushless motor run in a sub but exposed to the water? I do not have a ton of experience with brushless motors, but I certainly don't see any reason why not. The thing you've got to realize when you run electric motors in the waters, they're going to run properly for quite a while. And if you do proper maintenance on them, you'll probably get an extended life out of them. I will say, however, that you're eventually going to need to replace those motors. You're going to get some corrosion across anywhere that there's open electrical connections inside and outside that motor. So yes, it can be done, and there's tons of videos if you go on YouTube. Actually, the brushed motor guys with those high performance RC cars break in their brushed motors inside water. Something to do with the resistance on the stator in the motor, helping them seat the brushes properly. So yes, absolutely you can do it. But as I said before, if you're doing it to save some hassle, don't be lazy. Just do it properly, get a good motor, put it inside the cylinder, and just run the shaft out of a watertight linkage seal. Andrew wants to know, can you tell us the main companies that are out there for sub kits? I have quite a few of those companies listed on the links section of my website. So now you're going to make me go from memory here. So we got Otto in the Czech Republic. I carry all of his kits. You've got Bob Dimack from OTW out of the UK. I carry all of his kits as well. You've got Engel of Germany. I would love to carry their kits, and if there's anybody who has an in with them, I would love to be a North American distributor for them, but I can't get a hold of them for my life. I've reached out dozens of times and nobody gets back to me. So if anybody has an in with Engel, let them know that Bob Martin with the Nautilus Dry Docks wants to rep their stuff. Let's see, what else do we got here? We got Loyal Hana Dockyard, got Scale Shipyard. Check out the link section of my website. I carry most of those out there, and those other that I mentioned, like Loyal Hana and who I work with all the time, Dog Spielberger, who's a great guy. He's actually doing the layups for some of my bluebacks and kilos right now. And then you got Lee with the Scale Shipyard, who's got a ton of RC submarine hulls. Typically a little simpler in the details on there, but they're really economically priced. So very cool. Hopefully that helped you. Lots out there. Question from Paul Gunnerman. I have the 77 scale Nautilus. When you light up the dive tube in the wheelhouse. I don't know that I fully understood the question there. Daniel Anderson, question about the 48-inch Nautilus. Dude, you missed it. I already talked about it. Check it out early before. I'm not going to go into it again. Paul, oh, there we go. 3mm or 5mm in the wheelhouse. It's whatever you fit. Obviously, the 5mm is going to draw a minuscule amount more juice, but it's going to put out significantly more light. I use 3mm exclusively for almost all of my Nautilus builds, all the way up to the 66-inch. So there you go. Jesse Durrett, how can I get one of these submarine? Well, you're on your way. You're talking to the right guy. NautilusDryDocks.com. Did I light up the Sequest DSV, and do you have a lighting schematic available? I did not light up mine. Those windows are actually tricky. For those of you unfamiliar with it, the Sequest DSV was a fictional submarine from a 1990s era program called Sequest DSV. The cool thing about those windows, and the challenging thing about those windows, is they're actually triangular. So, and there's like 100 of them. You can, if you've got infinite amounts of patience, open up all of those triangular windows, put a piece of tape over the exterior, backfill it from the backside with clear resin, and you've got a clear window. And then if you just simply put a series of LED lights inside, they'll shine throughout the interior of the hull, shine out the windows. So that's what I would recommend for that particular model. If you search for lighting systems for like the Enterprise from Star Trek, for example, it'd be the same sort of an idea that you'd be looking to use there. Okay. Operation in my swimming pool with salt. Raphael, no, don't do it. Can't do it. Radio System 101. Again, this is on the FAQ section of my website, the resource section of my website. Radio waves do a pretty good job of penetrating fresh water at low frequency. Hobby radios here in North America operate for surface, 75 megahertz. Over in Europe, I believe they're on 40 megahertz. I've operated an RC submarine successfully to over 30 feet of depth in pure, fresh, clean water. Any impurities in the water, be it chemical, mineral, or biological, will significantly affect the range that those radio waves are able to penetrate the water. Heavily chlorinated swimming pools, I've had lost signal in as little as 2.5 to 3 feet of water when I'm standing only 10 or 20 feet away. Salt water is even worse, especially when you start approaching something to the salinity of ocean water. You'll get at max a few inches before you lose signal. So the answer to your question, no, can't do it. If you're going to operate in there, you're going to have to tether it with a cable. Not really cool. Hope that answered your question. Let's see here. Willie's got a 96 Benjamin Franklin with a 4 1/8 beam, like to an enclosed ballast system. Is there a watertight cylinder that uses this type of ballast? Enclosed ballast system. So I'm assuming you're talking about like a sealed, like a pressure ballast system. At 4 1/8 inch beam, you've got room for a 3.5 inch cylinder. The OTW 3.5 inch cylinder, great unit. That would probably fit the bill for what you're talking about. Alternatively, and similarly, you can go with the existing subdrivers that we've got, and you can do the gas ballast variation of that. So basically you utilize airbrush propellant, and that blows your ballast system. So that's kind of, I think it's along the same lines as what you're asking, but it doesn't rely on getting outside air from anywhere. All of the air it needs is on board. So those are two options. The OTW system is going to set you back like $1,300 plus a few extra gizmos inside. The subdriver, 3.5-inch subdriver with gas conversion will start you at about $600 plus additional RC gizmos inside. So hope that answers your question. Paul, you're chatty about Nautilus. Am I pleased with Masterpiece models? Masterpiece, let me see. So background to guys, we're talking about the Disney Nautilus here, my most favorite submarine of all time. Scott Brodeen used to manufacture my kits, the Nautilus Dry Docks Disney Nautilus version. So those are selling at about $400 because each one of those kits were laid up by hand by a master craftsman. What ended up happening is Scott Brodeen ended up having some health issues, and he sold the rights to manufacture those kits to a company called Masterpiece out of California, a gentleman by the name of John Giegel. John's got a different mentality when it comes to manufacturing kits. He is more about bringing cost-effective, economical models to the marketplace. To that end, he started selling them at $200, basically bottoming out the market for these models. And I'm sure he built a billion of them. But the issue is, in order to meet that price point, he had to cut corners in manufacturing. So, for example, when I was selling the kits, all of our small detail parts were cast metal, which is perfect for small, intricate details. All of the Masterpiece parts are cast resin, which means they're prone to warping. You get a ton of flash in there. Not ideal. So, to answer Paul's question and not to take up a ton of bandwidth on this RC submarine discussion board, I'm satisfied that Masterpiece is filling the niche that they went about trying to fill, if that makes sense. Now, I've got all of the molds from Scott Brodeen for the 31-inch boat, and it's my plan to release my own version of that kit, more specifically suited to RC operation. It'll be a light layup because those things are like 3/8 of an inch thick and really hard to get all the RC guts into. So watch for that coming out, I think, next year. Gregory wants to know where you can get a 1/144th Russian Typhoon class. The only company I know manufacturing a Typhoon right now of a scale that's adequate for RC operation is Engel of Germany at 1/100th scale. That's it. That's all that's out there. I am 85% of the way done on my own 1/100th scale. And it doesn't look like much sitting there right now, but I've got the box of stuff up here. Look at that. This is all laser cut stride work that's going to get applied to that model. You can see the corner of the conning tower up there. When I have free time, that'll be finished and released. But 1/144 scale, nothing that I know of. Certainly if someone else knows of a kit of that size, be interested in knowing where it came from. Okay. Where are we here? Is 3D printing only applicable for the modern cigar-shaped boats? Are the fleet boats not currently in production possible? I'm referring to fleet boats of the Great War. So, 3D printing is completely applicable, but the thing that you've got to realize is with the cost-effective filament printing that is out there right now, there is a tremendous amount of post-production work that needs to go into the boat to eliminate all of the striations in it. If you're not worried about that, then absolutely you can. That's absolutely no problem at all. There's files out there for free that you can download off of websites like Thingiverse, for example. But if you're talking about a production-ready kit that will rival traditional building products, they're not there yet. And that's pretty well what I'll say. So absolutely you can create the kits. Absolutely they'll make a great RC model, but they're not going to have the same level of fit and finish as the more traditional labor-intensive kits that are out there right now. Any new 3D models soon, Raphael? I went into the RCSub, so that'll be coming out here soon. All right, we're talking like 35 minutes, and we haven't even got the pumps yet. Let's talk some pumps. I got 4 different types that I'm going to talk about here right now for those of you who are interested. And again, I'm not going to say I'm like an expert, but for those of you that are interested, I'm going to go into the 4 different types that are kind of common. This is a bilge pump, 12-volt bilge pump, a Rule 1100 gallon per hour bilge pump. These are actually great for, someone asked about operating a motor in the wet. You can actually do that, really. So what you do, you can cut this flange off the bottom, and what you see on the inside there is actually the shaft of the motor with a little impeller on there. But if you cut this shroud off, you got access to that drive shaft, put a propeller on the back, and you've got a fully sealed, waterproof electric motor that you can mount anywhere you want. You just got to connect this to your electronic speed controller and you're good to go. But what this is the first type of pump that we're going to be talking about today. This is a centrifugal pump. And the reason that they're called centrifugal pump is because they utilize centrifugal force to propel water. So if you take a look at the impeller in there, it's kind of like curved. And then as this thing spins around, water is drawn in through here, and the centrifugal force pushes the water out around the outside of this motor, and then it's jetted out this hole in the side. Centrifugal pumps are great for moving a large amount of water at pretty low pressure. Some typical applications for this would be the rapid evacuation of a vented ballast tank. So if you've got that opening, open to the top where it can draw air in, you could evacuate a fairly substantial sized ballast tank very, very quickly with this pump. The only thing obviously you've got to watch is that when you turn that pump off, water is going to flow back through. So you'd need to make sure that you've got some form of like a pinch valve or a solenoid valve or some way of shutting that flow off once it's all done. So centrifugal pump, and again, just a little bonus in there, a remote waterproof electric motor that you can put in your submarine. So that'd be a great way if you're looking for, a cheap project to do at home. Next one is, let's do this one, the diaphragm pump. So, and the cool thing about this is like clear, so you can actually see the inside of this. This is the larger, the mini pump that I sell on the website. This is a 12-volt pump, good for air or water. And basically you can see in there, it's got a series of 3 different like diaphragms. So kind of like little lungs, I guess you can say, in there. And as that motor turns, that plate goes around like this. And it's like little plungers that are sucking and blowing air or water in and out. So this is pretty high pressure, which is a really cool thing. And like I said, air and water. Once they're turned off, though, the water will bleed back through. So again, you're looking at some form of a pinch valve if they're going to be under pressure from the other side. Next is a peristaltic pump. Now you find these a lot in the medical field because they're exceptionally precise. And again, because this has a clear end, we can see exactly how it works. You got a central shaft and a geared motor, and it spins around these little rollers, 3 little rollers that are pressing against this flexible silicone hose. So basically it's pinching off on the bottom there a little section of water, and as it spins, it pushes that water out the other side. Before we go any further, one thing that I will mention here, these are not reversible. They don't like to suck water. They'll only blow water. These are not reversible. They will only, suck water. They will not blow water. This, however, is two-way. So as it rolls this way, it's a perfectly metered amount of water that comes in and out. If you reverse the direction, perfectly metered amount of water in and out. Advantage is exceptionally high pressure, very, very precise, but very, very slow. So if you've got a small boat, this would be a great way to pump water in and out of your ballast tank or ballast bag, ballast bladder. The last one I want to touch on is a gear pump. And this one, unfortunately, is not clear, but you can see from this cross-section here, what you actually have inside are a series of two gears, and they kind of mesh together. And as they spin around, they, again, kind of meter out precise amounts of water. Now, these are pretty quick, and they work really, really well. For example, this is the type of pump, let's see here, that OTW uses in their watertight cylinders. That's a big gear pump right there on the end. And then that's a solenoid valve that closes the water path so that the water doesn't come back through. So it's a very quick pump. It's a high pressure pump. You do need to close off if you're going to have a pressure system. But I think if it wasn't a pressure system, if you're just looking to move the water back and forth, you could get away with that without having to utilize a valve. So those are the four different types of pumps that you'll typically see in used in our hobby. So if you're thinking about designing your own RC submarine or playing around with different things, the thing I want you to remember is this is not just for ballast systems. For example, I'm going to be utilizing a gear pump, micro gear pump, to actuate the periscopes on this big Type 21 system. So it's going to flow into the bottom here, pressurize all of these cylinders, and push the periscopes up and down. What I'm also going to do is actually my bow plane retracts are going to be plumbed into the same system, and it's going to utilize a syringe to act as a hydraulic ram to extend and retract my bow planes. So lots of different applications for pumps. It's really only limited by your imagination. All right. Thickness of the hull on your Astute, the smaller one, 2.5 millimeters. If you take a look at the big print here, that's a 5 millimeter wall. 5 millimeters right there. For those of you guys in the US or Canada for that matter, still stuck on the imperial system, that's about a 1/4 inch. 5 millimeters. All right. Someone is complaining about my cameraman abilities. Come on, dude. Keeping things economical for you. Could hire a cameraman, but then I'd have to double the prices I charge for everything. That's what I got lined up there. There was a lot to digest in there. A lot of projects that I've got going on right now. Biggest thing that you're going to see here right away, I am actually going to be in Louisville, Kentucky next week. My former employer, asked me to come out and help them for a few days in Louisville, Kentucky, the big construction equipment exhibition there. And then as soon as I get back, I go for surgery on my shoulder. I've got a big bone spur in my left shoulder. It's pretty painful, but they're going to go in there, shave it all down, get me tuned back up. So I'll probably be out of the shop for most of next week, but as soon as I get back, that Type 21 is getting done. First focus is probably going to be on finalizing the periscope system, And then we're going to be moving on to the electric torpedo system. So look for videos on that. I think what I'm going to end up doing for those of you who are interested, and it's only in 30-second scale, is put together a kit, a torpedo kit. So that if you have a 30-second scale boat, like the big Type 7 from OTW, or, you know, at 35th scale, the Bronco Type 23. That'll work for that too. Yeah, so that's kind of the update there. I'll take any last questions that are coming through, and then we are going to shut things down and let you guys get on with your Saturday. Question from Tom: do you recommend solenoids to shut the water out versus a simple check valve? So the reason that we utilize solenoids is because we want to have two-way flow. If you've got a check valve, you're only going to have one-way flow, which is great. You know, you could, for example, fill your ballast tank, but then you'd have no way to empty your ballast tank, which kind of defeats the purpose if you cannot resurface your boat. So the way that OTW does it, for example, and the way that I'm going to be doing it in my upcoming Subdriver Mark III version, the solenoid valve and the pump are wired in series. So when the pump comes on, the solenoid opens. When the pump turns off, the solenoid closes. And that's in both directions, because the cool thing about a solenoid valve is it will open whether the flow or the polarity is reverse or forward. So that's why it works, and it works really, really well. Hopefully that answers your question. 10 more seconds, guys. Any last questions? Now's the time. I'll be posting up our next, let's see here, what are we, October live session. I'll have that date on the homepage of my website. Look for that next time. If you have any questions that you want me to delve into deeply, let me know, and I'll do the research in advance, and we'll talk about it in depth right there. Some last quick questions. With a big 3D printer, how tall were those pieces that you printed? The maximum size on my big Z18 is 18 inches, just so that you know. I think these are about 14 inches in length. Is there a need for aft and forward trim tanks? A need? No. Want? Sure. A properly trimmed and ballasted boat does not require trim tanks, period. A couple different ways of doing that. You know, Engel, for example, uses two piston tanks, one forward and one aft. So that basically allows them to control the trim of the boat by adjusting the amount of water that's in the forward tank or the aft tank. If you've got a big central tank, you could have a trim tank, for example, one forward and aft, or sorry, forward or aft, or you could have two where you pump the water in between. In my experience, you know, while that would be a great feature and allow you to, you know, precisely adjust the trim, I find once you have that trim dialed in perfectly, there's no need to adjust the trim afterwards. So is there a need? No. Would it be cool to have, you know, yeah, sure, but it adds complexity. You know, I'm gonna tell you the fundamental issue that many people have is that they want everything, you know, particularly for the first boat. I get so many emails. They're like, I want a boat. I want it to have periscopes and lighting and sound and smoke and missiles and like all of this stuff. The law of probability dictates that for every point of failure that you have in the boat, you exponentially increase the odds of failure in a system. So just bear that in mind. The best subs that I have ever run in my life did four things: throttle, pitch, rudder, and ballast. That's all you need for an exceptionally fun time. If you've built a boat before and you got all that nailed down and you want to experiment with more features, go ahead and do it. Just again, remember the odds of one thing or another being broken at any given time increases exponentially with every gizmo and feature that you put in there. Okay, last one from Willie Biggins. Is there a chart you can use to determine what a scale boat should be i.e. 96 scale should be 53 inches. So talking about scale, I mean, it's fairly simple when you think about it. Just take the full-sized boat. Let's say it gives you measurement in feet. So let's say it's a 300-foot long boat in real life. What I typically do is multiply 300 by 12, and that'll give you the full-scale boat in inches. And then if you're going to make it to scale, you just take whatever the scale is and multiply it by that scale. So you would take, so let's say the full-size boat is 6,000 inches long. Pulled that number out of the air, whatever that boat turns out to be. 6,000 inches. You would divide that by 96 to get the length of the boat at 196 scale. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that's what you were actually asking. It's a pretty simple calculation. The other way of looking at it would be 6,000 inches times 196th, which is exactly what that means. This model is 196th of the size of a full-size boat. So hopefully that makes sense. I think if for those of you who are interested, I put a blog article out. So if you go to the blog section of my website, it talks about scale speed. And this is a little bit different, and we're going to end on this. The idea is, a 196 scale boat does not travel 196th the speed of the full-sized boat. And there's a formula in there that will help you to determine how fast your scale submarine should be moving to kick up a realistic wake behind it so that it most closely approximates the real thing. It's an interesting article. It's pretty short. Go to the blog section of my website. I'm pretty sure I've got that up there. I think that is it. We're going to leave it off here. Everybody's got more important things to do than listen to me on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Thank you for joining me. Your support means the world. This is all I'm doing right now. This is my entire livelihood, and people like you allow me to do it. Again, my name is Martin, the RCSubGuy with the NautilusDryDocks.com. Thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you all next time.